Welcome to this special Profiles in Excellence show coming to you from the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. I'm Jim Flyzik. During today's show, we will discuss IT success stories at numerous government agencies and hear from the key leaders making them happen. We will be doing the show in 3 segments with 3 different groups of federal executives. With me on the first segment are Turk, the Acting Chief Information Officer, Department of Commerce; Marie Roat, the Chief Information Officer at SBA; Renee Wynn, the Chief Information Officer at NASA; and Joe Klimavicz, the Chief Information Officer, Department of Justice. Let's start with Turk at the end of the table. The show's all about highlighting success stories and talking about things that are going really well. Talk to us a little bit about the Department of Commerce and a program that you're making success with.
Sure. Earlier in the year, in the fiscal year, actually fiscal year 17, we took a look at our organization and took a look at where we're headed within the department. And it became very, very clear that we needed to consolidate services, we needed to collapse services, we needed to bring to unity certain services, what we called strategic sourcing or strategic initiatives. The idea was to bring to unity these services so that we could do them better and offer a quality service at a lower price, right? And so when we put this in place, we saw that there were several different aspects of this that we needed to do to be successful. One of which was the realignment of our organization. We found that there were certain strategic skills that we needed to enhance and to bring forward within the organization so that we could then make sure that we were successful. And so we did the realignment. We added a risk component. We also knew that we were going to have to do significant outsourcing and that we were going to have to collapse to Unity services and do BPAs. So that drove changes in the way we did business in contracting and in program management. And so we've been emphasizing with our personnel contracting and program management for their careers to be able to move forward in what we needed to do.
Yeah, now, certainly not same old anymore. No. With mobility and cloud and DevOps and everything else. It would seem that you have to evolve with the technology.
Exactly, and to that point, and also in conjunction with the new administration, we have several strategic services that we offer now that capitalize on that new organizational realignment. We have established an Enterprise Security Operations Center in Fairmont, West Virginia, which is where we do the bulk of our incident response and incident reporting, as well as basically bake the cake for our components in terms of cybersecurity initiatives and being able to bring forward information about the systems to our components. In addition to that, NOAA has developed a trusted internet connection access point and have gained the approval to be able to offer that to the rest of the components within the Department of Commerce. The beauty of that is that it will save money for our telecommunications and connection to the internet. We think between 40 and 60%.
Wow.
As we mature this. In addition, that TICAP is resident at Fairmont, West Virginia, right on top of our Enterprise Security Operations Center.
Very cool.
So then we can use that information coming out of the TICAP for our own cybersecurity processes and procedures. And lastly, I think one of the bigger successes we've had is our CDM program. The CDM program, in conjunction with DHS, was really the first strategic sourcing / strategic services initiative, which I would maintain broke the ice for the rest of the Department of Commerce, bringing all of the various components within the department together in a concerted, strategic kind of offering that it was the first of its kind for Commerce.
Very good.
So Commerce is a very diverse.
Now, if I asked you, pick a lesson learned through this process that you'd pass on to your colleagues, maybe to give them some advice as to something you encountered that might help them as they work their way through some of these same issues.
Well, it's kind of interesting because in order to have a strategic service or a shared service, you have to have a service to share. I mean, it's kind of trite, but
intuitively that sounds right to me.
Yeah, but it's really important because otherwise, if you don't have the service in place initially, you then have to develop a project to do that service, which at some point may become a shared service or a strategic service. So we've actually done it iteratively, developed the ROI, and moved forward with the projects as we have developed them. And in the Department of Commerce, we've been very successful in showing that these things can work. Excellent. And that they're successful.
Excellent.
So.
Thanks, Rod. Maria Roat, man, I have all kinds of great things about you. Every year, constantly moving along. I've been following your career since DHS, DOT, now CIO over at SBA. Everyone's proud of you. But tell us about a program that you're proud of yourself.
Yeah, over the last year at SBA has been a huge transformational year around technology. SBA, we jokingly call it the lost decade around technology, and really moving the department forward fast and hard and continuing to move the ball forward. You know, a year ago I said I set the direction, 4 racks, moving to Windows 10 2016, as well as upgrading the infrastructure. Easier said than done. When you say we're getting to 4 racks in the primary data center, when you have a data center that's got water coming in it and lots of racks and lots of old equipment, it's a huge lift. And we've moved to the cloud, and we're not lifting and shifting. We have laid out the Tiger teams. We have done the architecture. We've done the migration planning. We're doing all the operational things that I've learned over the last 4 years and watching other people what not to do. So we're moving to the cloud. We're moving very fast. We're upgrading our infrastructure. You can't move to the cloud. You can't put things in place unless you've got the infrastructure that can support everything you do. 1/3 of our infrastructure was saturated. So not only was it a failing data center, water, racks, all kinds of problems, it was an infrastructure that was more than 30% of it was overloaded, like peaking at 100%. Wow. We are moving from our T1s, T3s, multiple T1s, all of that to a fiber backbone across the board. We're about 40, almost 50% done right now.
Wow, excellent.
We're rolling out on Windows 10, 2016, but all of this is hard. We've put CDM in the cloud. To do this requires saying, a year ago I said, no new hardware. I will not sign anything for any new hardware in our primary data center, period. Rod talked about CDM. We're the first federal agency to put CDM in the cloud because I refused to spend all that money on hardware. I said, why not?
Right.
My folks went, I said, go talk to DHS and Mark Nightinger and the team over there. We did it. Right. We said, let's go do it, but we need 96 cores. I said, no, you don't. Start small, build up. So this year has been a huge transformation, but the work we did in 12 months through the summer of this year set the stage for us to be able to support the hurricane activities. We partner with FEMA. We do all those loans for businesses as well as people for the home loans. It set the stage for us to be very quickly support the hurricane and the disasters when they hit this year.
Yeah, see, a lot of people don't realize some of the scope of the mission of someone like an SBA. They think small business, they don't realize the scope of the things that you do actually get involved with and have to do. And what's wonderful hearing you talk here is, you've set some high goals and you're holding people to meeting those goals and you're measuring progress to get there. And I think that's a real credit to you.
We've really just continuing to push.
And what's the lesson learned? The same question I asked Rod. If you had to pass a lesson on to your colleagues and so forth, what comes to mind that you would say, as you do this, think about this? Transformation
is not easy. It's hard. Having the technical chops and saying, this is what we're doing, and having the direction, and here's where we're going, and continuing to push. There are days where it's been, pushing that rope up a hill with my nose. There's been really, really hard days. But setting the direction, here's where we're going. We have to. Again, I said earlier about the lost decade, continuing to push every day, here's where we're going, and getting everybody on the bus. I can't say that I have everybody on the bus right now on my team, but I've brought in some really sharp people, and some of them we're pulling them along, but we're continuing to push, and I think you have to do that. As part of your lessons learned, just keep going. There's going to be failures, just keep going.
Maria, we've done, this is show 160, and I think talking about getting everybody on the team and the culture issues and getting everybody working in one direction has been a challenge 160 times on 160 shows. So I think we understand, that the challenges you face in that space. But thanks so much for sharing all that with you. Renee, Wynn, NASA always has neat stuff going on, man. You probably could, in fact, I was watching that supermoon the other day from a NASA camera, and that was really neat. But you probably got thousands of neat things to talk about. Pick one.
Sure. So we did the eclipse this year, and we decommissioned IT by jamming it into a planet.
Wow.
So one way we look at decommissioning is a little different than most. No, I am going to pull on that thread, which is changing a culture. So when I got to NASA in 2015, they had already had the wisdom to ask themselves some really tough questions with regard to the way they manage IT. And we have to remember that NASA will invent the IT that it needs for the specific purpose, which includes being part of the team that brought us the internet. And we still have that, we wear that well because we can invent. But IT is a strategic resource now, and much more now than it was, and the threats against the agency are much greater. In every agency and every human faces that different threat, and it's rising every day. But in the wisdom, they said IT needs to be a strategic resource, and that was done through what's called a business services assessment. And then I came in innocently, and they said, okay, make it happen. Well, you can move boxes and all of that, but you really need to capture the hearts and minds of those that serve you, that are in your organization, and those that are perhaps a little more resistant to what you want to get done. And so I've been working for a couple of years on the business services assessment, which is restructuring the delivery of IT, many more enterprise services, but also making the tough calls of what should be locally done and that which is still going to very much be done by the missions as long as I've got insights into that. So it's jammed my calendar. I get to be part of decisions of planetary protection. What do you think's going to be first when we return from Mars with humans? How do you prepare for that? What IT is there? What's your cybersecurity plan? What's your safety plan? And also been part of other conversations about the Mars journey that we've been talking about, whether we pivot back to the moon, where do we go from there? And so that's been really exciting to be accepted that way, but it wasn't easy to get there because IT was seen at NASA as just the delivery of that device. Well, now we're recognizing, in part because of cyber threats, that we need to be at the table to make sure that what we do in the corporate isn't affecting the mission, our flying assets. That's why I'm putting it up here, and I am including airplanes in that one, as well as our ground systems, which is our mission operations control, and our HVAC systems. You know, all of these things speak and interconnect with each other. And so NASA's really grabbed onto this and really embraced it. And we can't keep up with the demands that we are now getting to be parts of teams to both better protect NASA and continue to allow us to share our data across the globe. And in fact, a lot of our data comes from off this planet.
Excellent. You know, I'm right picking up on some themes here as I'm listening to you. I'm hearing themes of consolidating, realigning, modernizing, enterprise approaches. I mean, it's a common theme rolling through the panelists right now. Joe Klimavicz at DOJ. Joe, I'm sure you've got your share of challenges over there, as the other large agencies with strong components have. How about picking a program that comes to mind that you'd like to share with us that you think is working well?
Pick up on the theme of culture change. But first, Jim, thanks for having me again, and glad to be back here. Look, technology is intrinsic to everything that the department does, and when IT goes down, essentially the department goes down, the organization goes down, and my office delivers key IT services to the department. One way we've been working for the last probably 2 years to mitigate that risk is pursuing ISO 20000 certification. And so exactly 1 week ago, my office celebrated becoming one of only 3 government organizations to achieve ISO 20000 certification. Obviously a multi-year effort, but you know, the ISO 20000 is an international standard for IT service management, reflects the ITIL framework, and we really want to make sure that we're following best practices out there in industry, that we're striving for excellence in everything we do, and we can demonstrate the knowledge. We completed an exhaustive audit, and 14 processes were certified: business relationship management, service level management, information security. And when you think about this, I mean, it positions us to provide better services, higher quality services, make sure those services are repeatable and consistent, delivered in a consistent manner to support the mission. Also, we want to make sure we're in a position to continuously improve those services. So we're doing that as well. And I think we get, my office gets audited tremendously. Yeah, I think we all do.
I think
whether it be financial or FSMA or, just by everybody. And the more we can standardize and, we can use this certification to better position ourselves in other areas as well, like financial and FSMA. It's also, and a lot of people say, why do you care about getting certification? It's a visible thing. It's something that my office has strived for since I've been there, and we can now hang banners and,
Absolutely.
flags, and
that's important.
It is very important
Optics
to show.
are important.
It is very important, and we were also able to develop a normalized set of metrics that we can use to compare to others out there, not only in government but in the private sector.
Right. I want to ask you lessons learned, but before I do that, I want to back up one. I did not ask you what the lesson learned that you want to pass on, Renee, and
I was worried you thought it's because I can't be taught. But thank you. I think the lesson learned is any time that, and you never know how a change is going to hit someone, right? Even on a personal level, that change part is really hard. And so the day before you start what you're going to do is the time that you need to start thinking about change leadership, because you really have to grab people's hearts and minds with what you want to do, so they'll bring what they know to the table and make what you're doing even better in its next iteration. And if you don't do that, you're going to be facing headwinds the whole entire time, and the celebrations are always sort of a little bit dampened because some people feel like it was done to them and they weren't part of that process.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. I'm so happy that we got the lesson learned, because you sort of talk from the heart in terms of bringing it down to what the reality of what the environment's like. Joe, lesson learned.
I think the lessons learned are very much like you would expect from any change management process, but constant communication. And I actually think of this as almost like you're learning a foreign language, and if you want to start speaking the same standard language, then ask them questions in that and expect answers to come back in that same language. Be mindful of adding another layer of bureaucracy. Nobody wants to see these are essentially more mandates with nothing comes away. In our cases, we were baking these processes into our technology, and we were doing away with other kind of SOPs and other ways of doing business. So we were trying not to add additional work onto anybody's plate. And I think the last thing is to make sure that the processes and the metrics and all that are really relevant to the job that we're trying to perform. We hold weekly and monthly reviews, looking at those metrics, make sure we're actually using them to our advantage, to we're constantly getting better. So.
Excellent, excellent. And I want to thank these panelists, all from the civilian agencies, for being with us for the first segment here today. I know they're all extremely busy. You have very, very busy schedules, and we're just thrilled that you come out here to share your knowledge with us. One of the things I love about doing the show is you keep me smart. You say things and I learn things every show. So I appreciate you all being here. We're going to move on to our second segment here, which will feature DHS. But first, we're going to take a short break. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Radio, 1500 AM.